Good day, folks. Welcome back to the Pro MMA Betting podcast. We're going to talk about the UFC coming up this Saturday. Really good card. I like it from a betting perspective. Listeners who listened last week will know I didn't like UFC 247 from a betting perspective. But as always, we'll do a quick recap on how we got on and how members did. So on our pre-bets, we went 2-1 for about a unit's profit. We cashed Batista as a plus 120 underdog. We had 1 unit risked on Batista. We had 1 unit on Shevchenko, Chikagan going the distance, which didn't come in. And we had 1 unit on Jones versus Hayes over 2.5 rounds. And that came in for us. So we took home about a unit's profit on pre-bets. We actually had a losing night on live bet, which is very rare. Normally we profit on live bet, but actually a losing night. We was half a unit up on live bet going into the Reyes-Jones fight. I tipped Reyes after round 3 for a unit at plus 215. I felt he was 3 rounds up. I haven't gone back and watched it. I know round 2 seems to be the swing round. I can't remember it that well. All I really remember is I remember Reyes started really well. Jones came back in the middle and then Reyes finished strong. So I was fairly confident he was 3 rounds up, and I don't regret the bet. Plus 215 after round 3 was way too high. It definitely should have been closer to even odds. Unfortunately, that one didn't come in for us. So we ended up losing half a unit, I think it was, on live bet throughout the course of the UFC card. So, you know, minimal loss, minimal profit on the pre-bets. But sometimes I'll take walking away with minimal profit over a loss, especially on a card that I don't like for betting. So minimal profit on the night overall. But as I always say, profit is better than a loss. I'd rather be in the black than the red. Just a reminder for new listeners or anyone that is interested. Last year, guys, 2019, guys that risk £100 per unit won £14,500 utilising our pre-betting and live betting service. We are completely transparent, unlike most tipsters that are out there in any sport, to be honest, not just MMA. All of our bets are tracked. There's 3 links below this video to all of our trackers, so you can see our results. We use Bet MMA, which is a third-party tracking site as well. So you have to enter your bets or your tips before the event occurs, so there can be no skullduggery, etc. So we use that, and then I have to use betting.gs to track the live bets and also any boxing bets, or if I do a parlay between boxing and UFC. You can't record that stuff on betmma.tips. We also post our bet slips and our stakes on Twitter. I like to prove that we aren't paper trading, like again a lot of these tipsters and touts are, saying that they've risked 5 units. Well, what does that actually mean? Have you even risked any money? You're not putting up a bet slip to even show that you're betting what you're recommending, and a lot of them who do put up bet slips will cover the stake. So you're charging people to pay for your tips, but you're only risking $10 yourself. Why are you covering the stake? It just all stinks to me. I don't like it. So we will post our bet slips and our stakes on Twitter. I like to prove to members that not only am I betting what I am tipping, but I'm also betting a big number. You know, I'm not throwing around $10 a bet here. I'm risking money. My balls are on the line. Whatever I tip, I bet. If it is a bet that I tip that I can't bet because of limits, it's hard for me to get money down on props, etc., then members will be made fully aware that I am tipping this, but however I can't bet it personally. But it's very rare that I do that. I like to bet anything that I tip. So occasionally if I see great value, I'll go that way, but it's very rare. 95 or maybe even higher % of my bets that I tip, I bet personally. And as I say, if I don't, I will notify members that I can't bet this because of limits or whatever it may be, but I recommend that you bet this basically. So full transparency. At the moment, it's only £195 for 12 months, guys. Full access to pre-bets and live betting. I know that I've got a competitor out there that charges, I don't know if it's £200 or $200 per month, but man, ripping you guys off, anyone that's paying for that, it's going to cost you £2,500 a year. Guys, I'm charging 200, less than 200 for the month, for the year. This guy's charging per month that amount, and his results, I guarantee you, are not better than mine. Doesn't even track his bets on Bet MMA. Used to be on there, you can see him on there a couple of years ago. It's come off there now, no longer on there. Complete skullduggery, not tracking your bets third party when there's a facility to do so. Stinks, absolutely stinks. So yeah, £195 for the year, guys. Great value. We've got over 100 members now. We've got great camaraderie on the live betting sessions where a big number of the members tune in for. So come and join the team. Come and pick up the tips on live betting and also the pre-bets. I'm trying to get out as quickly as possible. BetOnline seems to have taken up the mantle of dropping odds lately, and they're dropping odds like 4 or 5 weeks in advance, which is something we haven't been used to before. So it is challenging staying on top of these odds at the moment. Used to be that odds were released the week of, or kind of 2 weeks at the earliest before an event, but now we're looking at kind of 4 or 5 week windows. And it does make the job of a capper difficult because you get so many pullouts in MMA. Even if you do try and get on top of all these cards, you're going to have so many fights that fall through, etc. So this is going to treat this as a bit of a learning year, just to see if BetOnline do maintain this and see the best way to stay on top of the lines moving forward, because it's always great to get early action down, but the problem with the cards being released 4 or 5 weeks in advance is you just can't get significant money down on these lines when they're first released. So if I send out a tip to members, no one's going to be able to get good money down on it. I mean, not everyone bets big stakes, but some people do, and you know, some people are medium stakes. It's even tough to get medium stakes down on these early lines, and also you bet a line, it moves very easily even with lower stakes. So I don't really see the benefit of being on top of these cards in terms of having capped cards 4 or 5 weeks in advance because of the restricted line movement, and also because of the pullouts. There's nothing more frustrating than when you spend 3 hours taping a fight and it falls out. At least a week or 2 weeks before, the pullouts normally are going to be minimal. You know, you might still get 1 or 2, but when you're talking 4 or 5 weeks out, you know, it's probably not uncommon for 4 or 5 fights on a particular card to fall out, and there's nothing more frustrating than when you waste X amount of hours and a card falls through, a particular fight falls through. So guys, you can follow us at Twitter at Pro MMA Betting. The website is prommmabetting.com. If you go to Premium Bets, that's where you can purchase weekly, monthly, 6 monthly or annual membership. Guys, 95% I'd say of our members are on the yearly. That's where the long-term value is. As I say all the time, this is a marathon, not a sprint, guys. I'm not promising you a get-rich-quick scheme. That is not going to happen. When you're with me, I like you to take a long-term view, so I like people to sign up for the 12 months. We can't win on every event. It's impossible. I don't tolerate people throwing their toys out the pram if we have a losing event. As I've said many times on here again, I'm not the kind of tipster where I'm going to recommend you risk 25 units on a particular UFC card. Absolute insanity. Anyone that's doing that and they're charging for picks, run a mile. If you have a bad night, MMA is very unpredictable. You have bad nights. You could lose 25 units in a night. That's a quarter of your bankroll gone down the drain. Absolute lunacy. With me, it is a slow and steady approach. If we have a bad night, you know, worst case scenario, we're going to lose probably 4 or 5 units. Absolute worst case scenario. Yeah, on the flip side, you're not going to have a massive 25, 20 unit, 30 unit winning night with me, but we will win profit steadily, slowly but surely. I prefer that approach to the high risk approach where you're potentially going to be throwing a quarter. I mean, I've seen people risking, you know, nearly half their bankrolls on a UFC event. There's no way I'm jeopardising people's bankrolls like that. It's a slow and steady approach, guys. Even on live betting, if you look at the live bet tracker, you'll see most of the live bet tips are 1 unit, Occasionally I'll go up to 2. I won't go higher than 2 units on live betting tips. And it works perfectly as long as you take the long-term approach. Same with the pre-bets. You know, on an event, I never risk more than 10 units. You know, last unit I risked 3 units on pre-bets. Slow and steady approach, guys. You know, you're not going to get rich quick, but you will make profit long term. As I said, last year, £100 unit bettors won £14,500. It's a lot of money. You know, you can use that to make some wise investment choices. You can use that to pay off some of your mortgage. You could use that to start up a business. You know, you could use that if you've got a family. You could go on 2 or 3 holidays with that money. You know, it's up to you what you do with the money, but be smart with it, guys. Be smart with these winnings. Don't be giving them back to the bookies. Don't be throwing stupid 8-leg parlays down. They don't cash, guys. It's very, very rare that they cash. Instead, take that 50 quid, invest it somewhere. If you've got kids, put it in a fund for your kids. That 50 quid every week, over a year, over 18 years, that works out to be a lot of money. Be smart, guys. Just don't give your money back to the books. Don't be trebling. Don't be doing 8-leg parlays. Just drop all that shit. It's not worth it. Prop bets, look, if you like a prop bet, go for it. But don't be putting, you know, a unit down, 2 units down on prop bet, someone to win in a certain round. It's not worth it, guys. The money in MMA is on betting money lines and fights to go over or under. I think they're the only ones to consider, really. As I said, I'll have a look at a prop bet now and again. Like a decision normally is what I'd look at, but anything else, guys, you're just throwing your money away. Just stick to the basics. It's simple. It is simple. But I'm not going to keep going on. Let's have a look at this card. We'll start as always from bottom, work our way up to the main event, see if we can find any value for you guys. Fight week now, so lines are where they're going to be generally. You're not going to see much more movement now, a little bit here and there maybe, but the lines are kind of set. We've got the prop bets out as well, so we can have a look at goes the distance, etc. as well. So as I said, we'll start from bottom, work our way through the card. Before I start on the card, quick shout out. I've had a shout out request, so I'm going to take my one chance to feel like I'm a radio DJ. There's a shout out to Appleman. He's a member of the Discord group. He's probably worth the price of admission alone. He's the comedian in the group. We all laugh at him, with him. Shout out to Appleman. Right, first fight. I think this is the first fight anyway. We've got Macy Kaysen taking on a very late replacement in Shani Young. She's stepping in for Nico Montano here, which is a bit disappointing because I was looking forward to Nico versus Macy. It was a really good fight. There's nothing really to break down. There's no odds out yet. Macy's going to be a massive favourite. Shana, I don't know how you say her name. She's not UFC ready at all. I think the only question here is what will Macy inside the distance pay. I think that's the only potential bet here. So I'll be keeping an eye out for that. I think we need it minus 200 or better to consider it. I can't be paying too much juice on a women's MMA finish, but I really can't see this girl lasting 3 rounds with Macy. Macy can, for a woman, but she cracks hard. So Macy by knockout is the prediction there, but we are awaiting the lines on that one. Next up, men's flyweight division. We've got Mark De La Rosa taking on Rudian Paiva. Have a quick look at the stats for these two. Rudian's only a couple of inches taller. I wonder if that's right. He seems taller than that to me. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage. Lands just under 5 significant strikes per minute. De La Rosa's up at just over 3 strikes absorbed. Both pretty high. Mark's at 4. Paiva's at 5. Takedowns, I mean, Mark does go for them, but he's not the best takedown artist, and Paiva seems to have pretty solid takedown defense. There's 77% there. He got taken down by Bontorin, but completely different guy to De La Rosa. Very physically strong, athletic. De La Rosa's more about kind of trying to get to your back from the clinch to try and get the takedown. So interesting fight here. I'm actually pretty high on Paiva. I did bet him against Bontorin, and it's such a shame that he got that cut because I think that would have been a really good fight. It was the first 2 minutes were really exciting, so I think over 15 minutes it would have been a great fight and very exciting. Paiva, he did do his camp for, I think it was the Bontorin fight at Team Alpha Male, but I checked his Instagram and he's trained in Brazil for this particular fight. We first saw him on the Contender Series, then we saw him against Kai Kara France in a fight where he could have got that decision for sure. I bet Kai Kara France in that fight, and I wasn't confident I was going to get the nod on the decision. Paiva, he's hittable, he doesn't really move his head too much, but you could see in the Kai Kara France fight that he's got a solid chin. Like, Kai Kara France can crack when he lands clean. He normally drops people, but they were just bouncing off Paiva. Really tough guy. Found his range, started moving forward on Kai Kara France, started landing. And then we had the Bontorin fight, as I've already mentioned, over in a few minutes. He cut Bontorin really badly with a left hook when Bontorin came charging in, but then he suffered a bad cut himself, and fight unfortunately got stopped. But I think Paiva's a decent fighter. He's got some decent takedown defence. He's got good stand-up. He's very tough. Very solid chin, as I've mentioned. Mark De La Rosa. He's coming off back-to-back losses to Kai Kara France and Alex Perez. One against Joby Sanchez, split decision. Fight before that he beat Elias Garcia, and he lost to Tim Elliott in his debut. Mark's not a bad fighter. He's a tough guy. He's the type that he's very happy to exchange in the pocket. He's happy to take one, to give one. He's got a decent ground game, but he just struggles to get people to the ground. As I already mentioned, he's not a great athlete. His takedowns aren't great. He's more of a try and get you on the fence and kind of try and get to your back against the fence. I don't think that's going to work against Paiva. I think this is going to be a stand-up fight, and I just think Paiva, with his reach advantage and his toughness. Now, I'm not saying that Mark isn't tough. He is. And as I said, he is happy to exchange in the pocket, but I just think Paiva's got the better chin. I mean, they've both fought the same guy. Kai Kara France won a pretty comfortable decision, whereas against Paiva he probably lost. Now, I know it's MMA maths and it doesn't work, but I think we're going to get the same kind of fight here. Kai Kara France against Paiva was a stand-up fight. Kai Kara France against Perez was a stand-up fight. I think Paiva he's got that reach advantage, and although De La Rosa I think is tough, Kai Kara France did drop him, for instance, and they were just bouncing off Paiva. So I think Paiva's got the sturdier chin. I think it is going to go to the distance, but I just think Paiva will just be landing the more quality shots. I think he's going to be the one moving forward as well. It might take him a round or first few minutes to kind of start finding his range and so forth, but I think Paiva's got the higher ceiling than Mark De La Rosa here, so I am going to go with Paiva, probably to win by decision. Moneyline currently, Paiva's at -210. It's kind of held there for a while now. He opened as a slight favourite, -125, so if anyone was able to get on that kind of action around there, then really good value in my opinion. Fight to go to a decision is -290, so it's a complete pass, guys. Paiva to win by decision is even money. I don't think that's a bad play. I mean, he got subbed by Tim Elliott, but Tim Elliott is very opportunistic with his submissions. Hasn't been subbed by anyone else, or stopped by anyone else, in fact. Paiva isn't a big finisher. Let me look at his KO ratio, because it doesn't list it on Tapology, but I remember before it's pretty low. It's lower than I was actually anticipating. So Paiva, he's got 3 KO wins, 3 submission wins, 12 decision wins. So the guy goes to it, he's a bit of a decision machine. He's never been knocked out. The TKO loss is a cut. He's got 1 submission loss from earlier in his career, but yeah, I mean, it looks like it's going to go to a decision, this particular fight. So I think, I wouldn't try and get too cute with it if you want to bet Paiva, because the money line, -200. I think if you're going to bet him now, I think I'd probably split it between Paiva decision and Paiva money line if you wanted to bet him. I mean, you can just bet the decision line straight up, but it's not like the money line's overly juiced. I'd just cover yourself a bit just in case you got a finish. But yeah, I do definitely like Piver there. I definitely think it's got the highest ceiling. Next up, one thing to mention as well, guys. I will mention it in some fights anyway, but this is actually at altitude. This event is at about, I think it's about 5,000 feet above sea level, so that is definitely a factor to consider here. Some obvious examples where it could play a factor, but there may be some examples where potentially that we've not seen issues in the past, but at altitude it changes it. So that is something we have to be mindful of here. There's no heavyweights on this card though, which is a shame. So it may be of a lesser factor than perhaps we've seen in other events, but there's some fights coming up where cardio's a concern anyway, so we're kind of touching it as and when. But next fight, really good fight. We've got Merab Dvalishvili taking on Casey Kenny. Really looking forward to this one. It's going to be a complete high-paced scramble fest. Potentially the altitude could play a factor here. I think Kenny's slowed down in both of his UFC fights. I think he slowed down a bit in round 3 against Ray Borg, and he definitely slowed down against Manny Bermudez. Now Manny did come in overweight, they fought at 140, and Casey Kenny can make 125. He's had most of his fights recently at 135, but he is a little bit undersized for the 135 division. So it'd be interesting to see what where his career goes long term. But yeah, this is just going to be a real scramble heavy fight. So we've seen Casey Kenny twice in the UFC now. We saw him against Ray Borg, where he won a unanimous decision. Quite surprisingly, I thought Ray Borg won that fight. It was close, don't get me wrong, but it was definitely 1-1 going into round 3, and I gave round 3 for Ray Borg personally. I was quite surprised at that decision, even on rewatching it. But what he did show is that he can scramble. Ray Borg was getting takedowns, but he couldn't keep him down. He would work quickly back to his feet. He's also got some decent takedowns himself, but he couldn't keep Ray Borg down. It was just a real scramble heavy fight. And then we kind of saw the same against Manny Bermudez. Kenny again was taking Manny Bermudez down. When he was in trouble on the floor, he was scrambling really well, and then he noticeably slowed by round 3, and he got taken down and controlled for pretty much all of round 3. So he's got a similar type of opponent here in terms of being grappler first, but the difference with Merab is he's bigger than someone like a Ray Borg. Maybe he's not bigger than a Manny Bermudez, but he's a lot more suffocating than someone like a Manny Bermudez. He's kind of like a bigger, more suffocating version of Ray Borg in a weird way, I guess, but he's more of a threat on the feet than someone like Ray Borg. We haven't really seen Kenny striking in the UFC. It's pretty much just been scramble after scramble after scramble. Merab will probably be content to strike at points in this fight. We've seen that from him. His stand-up seems to be improving under the tutelage of Matt Serra and Ray Longo. He's got a good right hand. We saw him drop Ricky Simon with it. I think he was doing... See, I've done tape on these fights, guys, about nearly 2 weeks ago now. But I think pretty sure he tagged Brad Katona as well on the feet. The knock on him has been in his first 2 UFC fights was his top control. He was getting loads and loads of takedowns, but Simon and Frankie Sands were working their way back to their feet. That was better against Terry and Ware and Brad Katona, but how good are they at scrambling back to their feet? I don't think they're great. They're not as scramble heavy as like a Ricky Simon, and they're not as scramble heavy as someone like a Casey Kenny. So, I mean, when you look at the stats, Merab averages 6 takedowns, I think it is, per 15 minutes. So that's crazy high, the output this guy can put out. He did gas in his debut against Sands, but he's been okay since, and he fights at a ridiculous pace. I mean, it's just under 7 takedowns per 15 minutes that he averages. So you know he's going to come out. He sets a pace on the feet. He's going to be moving forward, and he's relentless with them takedowns. I don't think he's going to be able to hold Casey Kenny down. I think Casey will work back to his feet, but I can see Merab just being the bigger, more physical guy, just holding him against the fence when he does work back to his feet, just controlling position on the fence, getting takedowns, Casey having to work back to his feet. And I do see Casey tiring as well. Like I said, he did tiring for me by round 3 in both of his UFC fights, and I expect that to happen again here. Merab's got to be careful of being taken down by Casey Kenny. Kenny's got decent takedowns. We have seen Merab taken down in the past. Ricky Simon was able to hit some takedowns on him. So he needs to be careful in that aspect. If he does get taken down, that he does get back to his feet. But it's just going to be a mad, scramble, heavy fight. But I do like Merab here. The line did drop a few days ago to... I think I saw Merab at like -145. It's gone back up now. He's up at like the -160 area again. But I do like him in this fight. I just think size, pace, just constant takedowns. As long as Merab's cardio holds up, then I just think the size is going to play a big factor here. And I've not really got a read on how good Casey Kenny's stand-up is, because we just haven't seen it in the UFC. It's just constantly been just constant scrambles that he's involved in. And Merab's stand-up isn't bad. I mean, it's not great, but it's not bad, and he has got a dangerous right hand. So, interesting fight. It's going to be exciting. I expect it to go the distance. The line probably reflects that. Yeah, -300. You can't be playing that. David Charlie decision is even money. Look, if you want to bet Merab, just take the money line. It's -160 for 0.6 points. It's not worth the sweat in case he ends up in a dangerous position on Kenny's back or something. But I can't envisage there being a finish here really. Casey Kenny is +145. I know some people managed to get +180 on him, which I can't fault at all. I wouldn't be betting Merab in the -240 area. So we look at the historical line. It doesn't say he was +240 here, but or -240, and it says Casey's best line was +138. But I know some guys that got +180. I don't fault that at all. But I do really like Merab here to grind out the decision. So I'm going to go with Merab decision. Next, the men's light heavyweight division. We've got Devin Clark taking on Dequan Townsend, who fought only a couple of weeks ago. Late notice replacement here. Devin Clark should win this fight, guys. I'm not touching him though. Townsend, for all his faults, he can crack and he's durable. He might be around for 3 rounds here, and Devin Clark's not the kind of guy I'm going to trust when I think he's up at -300 last time I looked. Where's that line? -310 at dimes. Yeah, I'm not touching that. I think you're crazy if you're betting someone like Devin Clark at -310. This is exactly what I said last week about Alex Morono. There was probably value on the line when he was under -200, but people that were betting him over -200 and all the way up to -400, it's just crazy. He's a lower level UFC guy, and the same with Devin Clark. There's no way I'm trusting that guy as a -300 or more, which he actually is now, favourite. So it's a complete pass fight for me. I don't rate Townsend at all, so I don't even want to bet him. So I'll go with Clark to win here, but pass for me, guys. I don't think anyone should be touching that fight unless you want to take a stab on, I don't know, Townsend KO maybe. But pass fight. Clark probably to win a decision. Also, one thing to note is that I'm not sure if it's at middleweight or light heavyweight actually, but Clark does train, or last time I checked anyway, he trained at Jackson Wink. So he's used to training at altitude. Townsend in on short notice, so the cardio factor could play a factor here. It's actually up at 205 this fight. So Clark, I'm sure he has fought at 205. He did his UFC debut, and then Bevan Lewis was down at middleweight. Now he's back up at light heavyweight. It doesn't bode well for him. He's probably going to slow down significantly. But still, it's a pass fight for me. Men's lightweight division next. Fight I'm really looking forward to. We've got Scott Holtzman taking on Jim Miller. I'm a fan of both guys. I think this fight comes down to how Jim Miller looks if it goes past round 1. He's battling Lyme's disease. What I have noticed in the last few fights he's had is in the post-fight interviews he's spoken pretty candidly about how he's now on top of his battle. He feels better than he has for a long time. Obviously, you have to take some of that talk that fighters come out with a pinch of salt, but he does seem to be speaking really positively about his battle with it and how he's in a much better spot than he has been recently or over the last few years. He's been saying how he's kind of got on top of it since the Alex White fight, basically. We just haven't seen him go to a decision since the Trinaldo fight where he gassed badly. It was over in Brazil. He kind of quit on his stall at the end of round 2, so he had nothing left to give. That's just what makes this fight difficult. It's been over 2 years. You're looking at like nearly 2.5 years since we've seen him out of round 1. Every fight since has been over in round 1. He's had a couple of round 1 losses to Dan Hooker and Charles Oliveira, no shame in them, and then he's had 3 round 1 wins against Alex White, Jason Gonzalez and Clay Guida, so not the best competition. So it's just hard to know where Jim Miller's at and how he will look past round 1 here. He's very dangerous in round 1. He's got a very good submission game, so Holtzman's going to have to be careful with that. Scott Holtzman, I'm quite a fan of the guy. I like his style. He's very physically strong. He brings great pressure. He's definitely improved since he first got into the UFC, but he is 36 years of age now, same age as Miller. He's definitely a fresher in terms of mileage, but it comes a point where it gets difficult to improve as you get older. So he's probably at his ceiling, I would have thought. He left the MMA lab a little while ago as well. I'm assuming it's because of the travel. I know he's got a young child, or maybe he's got 2. He's definitely got 1 young child, and I know he was away from home for like 6 weeks, and he spoke about how he hated it. So he's training at camp closer to home now. I can't remember what they're called. It's Tribe or something. It's the camp that Brian Barberina trains out of as well. So he's training there now. He was there for the last fight against Maestro, which he won due to grotesque swelling on Maestro's eye at the end of round 2, but he was in complete control of that fight. He did get dropped with I think it was a left hook at one point, but he was straight back up. Completely controlled the fight otherwise. The fight before that, lost to Nick Lentz. Just struggle with Nick Lentz's grinding style a little bit. Nick is a very strong wrestler. Jim Miller can't wrestle like that. He doesn't chain wrestle. He's kind of like a double or bust kind of guy. Nick Lentz just stayed on Scott and just held him against the fence for long periods. He came on strong in round 3, but he couldn't put Lentz away. And the fight before that was his career best performance against Alan Patrick. Looked really, really good in that fight. So he has definitely improved. He's got a good chin. We did see him get rocks against Daryl Hulcher and Maestro, and Josh Emmett rocked him as well. But I mean, he took some massive shots from Josh Emmett. If you're taking those shots, you've got a crazy chin. But Jim Miller likewise is a tough guy to put away. He's only been put away from a Donald Cerrone head kick and that massive knee from Dan Hooker. So he's not an easy guy to put away. This fight's at altitude, so that's something to factor in here, especially with regards to Jim Miller and how he is going to look out of round 1 if you can't get a round 1 finish. But I see this being a very competitive fight. I just have a feeling that Scott Holtzman's size, physicality, freshness just might win the day for him, and he nabs a gritty decision here over 3 rounds. The line's steadily been coming down on Scott Holtzman. He was up at around -160. He's currently sitting at -135. So I'd be tempted to make a play on Scott if this line comes in a little bit more. I think I'm looking for the -120 territory. Whether it gets there or not, I don't know. But it definitely could. It's definitely been trending that way. Jim Miller, I don't want to go as far as to say he is round 1 or bust, because I just don't know how he's going to look past round 2. But Scott Holtzman's a tough, gritty guy, and if you if you are starting to slow a little, he's the kind of guy that's still going to be there in your face, and he's going to be looking to punish you. He does wind up a little bit too much with his punches, Scott, which means he does miss a lot. But when he does land with power, and he's got decent takedown defense, but he can be taken down. But he's very hard to hold down. He's got very good get-ups, but he's got to be very careful with Jim Miller taking his back in transition here. So with the question marks around Jim, I am leaning Scott. So I'm going to go with Scott here. Minus 135 at the moment. As I said, minus 120. I'm potentially interested in having a look at him. Next fight on the card, another one I'm really looking forward to. We've got John Dodson taking on Nathaniel Wood. John Dodson kind of in a gatekeeper type role now, I feel. He's definitely in the twilight years of his career. It's been struggling as of late, but I mean, he's not had an easy run of it. His last 4 opponents: Minor Morales, Pedro Munoz, Jimmy Rivera, and Peter Yan. You know, kind of 4 of the best fighters in the division. So he's not had a run of it. Nathaniel Wood is the young upstart that the UFC are probably hoping is going to surge through to contention. He's won his first 3 UFC fights, all inside the distance and all by submission, funnily enough. He's known for being a striker, but he's actually won with submissions in his first 3 fights, which is pretty impressive when you consider he is a striker. And he fights in the Bantamweight division, so you know, harder to finish fights down there, but he's been finishing them. So you've got Nathaniel Wood, a good athlete, he's a good striker, he packs power, shown that he's very competent grappling at this level, against John Dodson, who's extremely fast, albeit I'd say he has slowed a notch in the last few years. He's starting to get up there in age now. He's I think he's 35 now. So age, it always affects the lighter weight fighters sooner than the larger fighters, because they rely on their reflexes and speed more, and that is something that starts to slow down as you age, and I think you can see it is starting to affect Dodson. He can also be really inactive, doesn't throw enough volume, which costs him in fights as well. My worry for Wood here is the jury for me is out on Nathaniel Wood's defence and his chin. Now, he got rocked in the first round against Johnny Eduardo, and I'm a Cage Warriors fan. I remember watching his fight against Josh Reed in Cage Warriors, where he was in big trouble early in round 1 there as well. So I do just have a little bit of a worry about his chin and his hitability, and John Dodson can crack. I mean, we saw that, we got a reminder of that in his last fight against Peter Yan, when he got control for the whole fight, but there was one spot where he dropped Peter Yan. Now Yan got straight back up and straight back to business, but could that be different if that lands on Nathaniel Wood, who is hittable? So Wood's not going to get his grappling going here, which he's been able to utilise in his first 3 fights. He will be forced to stand, I'm pretty sure, for the 3 rounds. So he's got to be very careful when he's kind of coming in and back out of range, that he doesn't get caught by Dodson. That left hand is really quick. Dodson will try and double it up. Really quick with it. Even though I think he's lost a step, he's still quicker than your average bantamweight fighter. But for me, I am going to lean towards Nathaniel Wood to win a decision here. But I don't really want to play that money line. I think it's a little bit too steep. For me to play the money line, I'd need it a bit closer. This is a big step up for Nathaniel Wood. As I said, let's not forget John Dodson's been fighting the best fighters in the division. He's incredibly durable. So Nathaniel Wood's going to have to put in a very mature performance here to come away with a win. Dodson does train at altitude. I don't really expect it to affect someone like Nathaniel Wood. He's young, lighter weight class fighter. Should be okay. So I'm going to lean with Nathaniel Wood. Well, if he wins, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a decision. I don't see him being the first guy to stop John Dodson. So I'll go with Wood for decision there. Next, men's welterweight division. We've got Tim Means taking on Daniel Rodriguez. Rodriguez, late replacement. I can't remember the Russian names. The Russian guy's name that Means was meant to fight I was really looking forward to that. I hadn't got round to tape, but Means was the underdog in that fight, and I was quite interested in betting him as the underdog. Tim Means is the kind of guy you want to bet close to even money or as an underdog. I'm not betting him as a big favourite, which he is here. He's kind of in the minus 250 range. I don't see Daniel Rodriguez having anything for Tim Means. I've watched tape on Rodriguez. I'm not impressed. It should be a easy enough night's work for Tim Means, but I still can't bring myself to pay juice on someone like Tim Means. If he was under minus 200 here, I'd probably be betting him, but I'm not paying the minus 250 price tag on Tim Means here. But I do expect him to win, and he should win this fairly comfortably. One thing to note: his last couple of fights, he seems to be a bit more hittable. He went through that spell of kind of fighting a bit safe, and he lost some contentious decisions. He had the close fight with Bilal. He had the loss over in Brazil to Sergio Morales. But these last couple of fights, he seems to be throwing more caution to the wind and going for the kill. And it kind of cost him. Like, Price put him away and hurt him at the start of the round as well. And Thiago Alves started really well in their fight. So yeah, he seems to have opened himself up to being hit more to get these finishes. He probably wants those performance bonuses and so forth. But I mean, this is one where he can probably get a kind of nasty finish. So I'll go with Means, but I need the line to come in for me to consider it. Means, what is Means inside the distance? Oh, it's even money. It's crap. Yeah. Means decision plus 275. He might come out and fight conservative here, and that's going to have a lot of value. So, but yeah, it's a pass fight for me, guys. Next up in the men's lightweight division, we've got Lando Vannata taking on Yancy Medeiros. A lot of money's coming on Lando here. He opened up as a plus 140 underdog. He's now the favourite, sitting at minus 115. It's basically a pick'em line now. Exactly how I think it should be lined. I have zero faith trust in either of these guys. I guess in hindsight, plus 140 on Lando is probably not a bad bet, but I've bet Lando in the past. I'm kind of done betting him. I mean, if we look at Yancy, he's not fought for just over a year. Took a one-sided loss to Gregor Gillespie. Fight before that, got knocked out in the first round by Donald Cerrone. Fight before that, had an absolute war with Alex Oliveira, one of the fights of 2017. He came back, took a horrendous beating early in that fight, and came back and managed to stop Oliveira. So, I mean, the Trinaldo fight as well, he took a savage beating. I don't know how he didn't lose consciousness in that fight. So he's had some tough fights, Yancy. Not fought much. Fought once in 2018, once in 2019. But the last two fights, he's taken quite a bit of punishment. So it's hard to know really where he's headed. I'm not sure why he's been fighting infrequently. Lando Vannata's just... I mean, who have I bet him against? I bet him against... I think I've not bet him much, actually. I bet him against Matt Frivola when it was the draw, and I did bet him against Marcus Mariano because that was just a joke. And I bet Diakese to beat him last time out. He's just a hard guy to trust, Lando. He is durable though. He's very tough to put away. I think Tony Ferguson's the only guy to stop him in the UFC so far. I mean, looking at it though, he's never really fought big punches, to be fair. But he's very dangerous round one. Round one of most fights, he has people in big trouble. Like Matt Frivola was in big trouble in round one. He had Bobby Green in big trouble in round one. But he slows down. I mean, this fight's at altitude and he trains at altitude, but so you think like surely he won't slow down more than he normally does, but will he? So it's something to consider here. It's just a tough fight to call, especially now at Pick'em line, which is exactly where I peg it. I don't know. I'm gonna pick. I pick Yancy now because he's the underdog, I guess. But it's it's a very difficult fight to call. I've not really got much faith in Yancy at this point either. I think he's taken a lot of punishment, but Lando's just not been, he's not been putting anyone away. Kind of 1 in a million will kick on Makdessi, and then Marcus Mariano shouldn't even be in the UFC. I mean, he nearly put Bobby Green away, had him hurt in round 1, but I just don't know. I don't know if he can put Yancy away even. So yeah, I'm going to go Yancy, because you just have to favour Yancy the longer the fight goes. Just Lando, just every fight he slows down. So I'll go Yancy, but I am not confident. I think at current line it's a pass fight. The fight to end inside the distance is sitting at minus 135, but my worry with that is I feel like you're relying on a Lando finish, because I don't know if Yancy can put him away. He is a tough guy, but he's so hittable, Lando. So yeah, I don't know if I do even like that, when I just feel like I don't know if Yancy can put him away. So then you're just relying on a Lando finish potentially. But yeah, pass fight at current lines for me, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be an entertaining fight. Next up, we have Bontorin. They're taking on Ray Borg, one of the fights I'm most looking forward to on this card. Should be a really, really entertaining fight. It's going to be a scramble heavy fight, this one. Both similar styles. They're both going to be looking to grapple here. I just think Ray Borg is going to wear Bontorin down and take over as this fight goes on. Ray Borg's incredibly difficult to out-scramble. I mean, he even out-scrambled Formiga. Formiga had his back. He's really good at escaping when someone has his back, Ray Borg. We saw it against Gabriel Silva as well. He's back down at Flyweight here. He looks in really good shape on Instagram. His little boy seems to be in a good place. He's fighting at home. He trains at altitude. It just seems like the kind of everything's pointing in the right direction for Ray Borg here. So I'm really hoping he comes out and puts in a great performance. He's coming off the 2 fights at 135. I think he beat Casey Kenny. I thought he deserved that decision, and he's coming off the win over, I think it's Gabriel Silva, where he had to overcome some early adversity in that fight. But 135 is just too big for him. He shouldn't be up at 135. He's too small. 125 is definitely the better division for him. I just hope he makes weight here and looks good, because I do favour him. I just think down the stretch here he's going to take over. As I said, he's incredibly difficult to out-scramble. He stays on you consistently. He's got good takedowns. His top controls, it's okay. But if you work back to your feet, he will stay on you on the fence. He'll take you down again. The guy can just keep going and going for 3 rounds. And I've seen Bontorin slow down a little bit in the past, and I just think at 125, if you are a grappler, it's just Ray Borg's just a tough out for anyone. I remember his UFC debut against Dustin Ortiz, incredibly close fight, could have gone either way. That just a complete scramble fest, and that was in his debut. Like, I don't know how many years ago that was now, maybe 5-6 years ago. And he's holding his own with someone like Dustin Ortiz. He's obviously had that period of inactivity where his kid wasn't well and so forth, but I think he's back fully focused now, and I'm really hoping this is going to be a breakout performance again to remind everyone what a danger he is in the flyweight division. His stand-up's never been great. I don't think that's really going to factor in here. I just think he's going to make it a scramble heavy fight, and while it will be competitive early, I just think he pulls away down the stretch. Money's come in on Borg. He's currently at minus 140, I think, last time I looked. Yeah, minus 140. He opened up as, well, these means odds on best fight odds aren't right, because I know for a fact he was sitting at even money and minus 110 for quite a while. So that was definitely a good price to get on him. I still like him, even at minus 140. I still like him, I think. But I don't want to write off Bontorin. He's a tough guy. You could see he's physically very strong.
Explosive guy. He's got a very good record. I think he's sitting at like 18-1, I believe. 16-1 he is. But on the Contender Series, I mean, he nearly got knocked out on the Contender Series. He was in big trouble. Showed real good heart to come back and lock up the submission on Gabriel, because he was in big trouble in that second round. The Biblatov fight, a very close fight, and I mean, Biblatov threw that fight away in like the last 40 seconds. He was winning. He went for a takedown for some weird reason. He ended up on the bottom with Bontorin on his back, and it cost him the fight. And then the Paiva fight, cut. You can't take anything away from that. It was over in a couple of minutes. But I just truly think Ray Borg, when your kind of style is similar to that of Ray Borg's, he's just a tough guy to beat. So I'm going to go with Borg here to win a decision. Lightweight division next, we've got Brok Weaver making his UFC debut against Kazula Vargas, who we saw last time out against the Brazilian kid. Look, Brok Weaver should win this fight. Kazula Vargas is not the UFC level at all. Brok Weaver, I don't think he's the best fighter in the world, but he is tough. He will stand your face and he will fight for your money. But I think anyone that's betting him at the moment at minus 300 is pretty nuts. You can't be trusting Brok Weaver. I mean, he went to a split decision with Crazy Horse Bennett not long ago. I think he's clearly improved. I don't know what the circumstances around that fight were, whether it was late notice or whatever. I've not seen it, but I mean, it's when you look at that on someone's record and it's fairly recent, and then they're a minus 300 favourite in the UFC debut, it's a bit worrying, even though Kazula Vargas is not UFC level. So yeah, there's no value left. I know people got on Weaver when he was like minus 200. I think the line was even better than that at one point. So yeah, I can understand it then, but nah, you should be passing guys. Use that Alex Morono fight as your example. Brok Weaver is a lower level UFC fighter. Alex Morono is a lower level UFC fighter. We touched on someone else earlier as well. I can't remember who it is that's fighting on this card that's a decent favourite, and I regard them as a lower level UFC fighter. You can't be paying juice on these people. It's not worth the risk. If you're going to pay juice, it needs to be something that is a lock, and it's a decent fighter that you can trust. So, I mean, I'll go with Weaver here, but yeah, if you're paying minus 300, it might pay off today, but at some point you're going to get burned. Next, women's flyweight division. Why is this fight like the third from the end? I don't get it at all. It should be buried. This is a really solid card, and they put this on the main card. You've got Montana De La Rosa taking on Mara Borella. I did tape on this one. It's just hard to get a full read on Borella's takedown defence, really. It's just not been tested for such a long time. We did see Talita Santos take her down in their fight. I think it was in round 1. I watched a fight a couple of weeks ago now. I can't remember how she ended up getting back to her feet, because Borella does win round 1. I think there might have been a referee stand-up, and then Borella actually took Santos down, I think, if memory serves me right. But outside of that, we haven't really seen her on her back or her takedown defence tested. She likes to grab the clinch and take you down from the clinch. Her striking has improved from what it was, but it's still not great. I mean, we saw her knocked out by Lauren Murphy in her last fight. Talita Santos, or Taylor Santos, managed to keep the fight standing. I think round 1 and 2 she ended up getting taken down. Round 3 she did keep it standing, and she outstruck Borella easily. And the Chikagan fight was all stand up, and it was close, but that was kind of before Chikagan adopted a new style of kind of standing, setting her feet more and actually landing shots. This was more in her air punching days, but it was a very close fight. She got Chikagan down at one point, but Chikagan got straight back up. So the nuts and bolts of her game is she likes to get the body lock and she likes to get the takedown in top position. Montana De La Rosa, honestly, from doing tape, if this fight stays on the feet for 3 rounds, I haven't got a clue what happens. But De La Rosa is a decent wrestler. She's got decent takedowns. We've seen them in the UFC. She struggled to get Ostovich down, but Ostovich has got pretty strong hips. But Nadia Kassem, easy takedowns, and she took Andrea Lee down multiple times, but Andrea Lee just kept working her way back to her feet. I'm not so sure Borella will be able to do that, even though she is full-time at American Top Team. She has been for a while now. So, it's just, you know, I don't have a read on the stand-up, so if I don't have a read on the stand-up, if I'm betting Montana, it's because I think she wrestles her. And at -175, that's a no bet for me. Thank you very much. I do think Montana probably wins. I'm just thinking as well, have I even picked any underdogs on this card yet? I don't like that I've not picked any underdogs, because every favourite is not winning. Oh, I picked Yancy, didn't I? That's the only one I've picked so far. But Montana, I don't know. Honestly, -175 just seems too wide for me, but she's not got bad takedowns, which makes me think she might just grind Borella out. But I'm picking Borella. I don't know. I can't justify it greatly, because I can't read how this fight plays out on the floor, on the feet rather. Borella likes to get the takedown and top control. Can she get De La Rosa down? I'm not 100% sure she can, but she's +150. Look, I haven't risked any money on this fight, and I'm not. But I definitely couldn't bet Montana De La Rosa as a -175 favourite here. So I'm going to pick Borella to win a decision. But even though my head's telling me that Montana's going to wrestle enough to win this, but as I say, we base our picks based on the lines, and I think if there is any value in this fight, it's on Borella as the underdog. Co-main event, we've got Diego Sanchez taking on Michel Pereira. Diego is absolutely shot to pieces. He's not training at Jackson. I don't know who the hell he's training with. Last time he fought, he had that one random guy in his corner. I don't know what's going through the guy's head. He needs to retire. UFC have kind of given him a winnable fight here though, but there's a real dangerous chance that he gets knocked out bad in round one. His durability's gone. Pereira is a dangerous striker. We saw that against Danny Roberts, but he just does the stupidest stuff, and this fight is at altitude. He already gasses because he uses such high energy moves. He does backflips mid-fight. You know, we saw it in his last fight where he lost as a huge favourite. Embarrassing loss for him. I wonder if he will come out here and just kind of fight more sensibly. It's at altitude. Surely he doesn't start backflipping and stuff, because surely he knows if he gasses, Diego Sanchez is going to take him down and win. But it's just hard to have faith in Diego surviving while Pereira's fresh. You know, that first round is, if you're backing Sanchez, it's going to be a massive sweat. I took Sanchez against Mickey Gall, but as I think +200 we got on that. But Mickey Gall, you know, his stand-up has improved. Even when it was on the feet, I kind of felt a bit more nervous for Diego than I was expecting. Someone like Pereira, he's pretty durable as well. Pereira, he's only been finished twice in his career. Look, I don't want to bet Pereira as a -160 favourite, but I have to go with him here. I think Diego, there's definitely a path for Diego if he can survive early or get an early takedown. I'm not sure he can though early. I think Pereira might be too big for him early and chuck him off, and the guy can crack. Pereira inside the distance is basically the same as his money line. I wonder what round one will be. That'd be interesting. Pereira round one. But Sanchez, I mean, you don't need to play any props with Sanchez. If you want to bet Sanchez, just take his money line. But Sanchez decision +255. I think there's some value there. I think if he does win, it'll be a decision. So I'm going to pick Pereira, but there's no chance. I'm just thinking, if you put a gun to my head and say I've got to bet this fight based on the current lines, I'd take the dog money on Sanchez. That's where the value probably is, to be fair. But I'm not sure if he can survive. can't see him. Who do I pick? No, I'm picking Pereira. I pick Pereira. There's no value for me on his money line, so I should be picking but I just can't pick Sanchez. I just see him getting knocked out. That's what's going around in my head. So I'll go with Pereira by knockout. Main event of the evening, rematch from about 4 years ago. We've got Corey Anderson taking on Jan Blachowicz. If you haven't seen the first fight, it was a 3-rounder then, so this is obviously 5-rounder. Corey pretty much controlled the whole fight. The first fight was so competitive. Jan did take Corey down actually, but Corey got straight back to his feet. But the fight was pretty much Corey just getting takedowns and maintaining top control on Jan basically. The questions we need to ask ourselves for this rematch are: how much has Jan improved in the last 4 years, and has his cardio improved enough? Because this is a 5-round fight. Now, Jan has historically had cardio issues, albeit they seem to have improved. If you go back to some of his earlier fights, like his fight with Igor Pereira, don't know how you say the name, there was gassed in that fight. He gassed against Corey. He gassed against Pat Cummins. These are ones I'm just going off from memory. I haven't gone back and watched these fights recently, but he definitely had cardio issues. Since the Cummins fight, if we have a look at his record, because there's been rumours that people think he might be on something, and I know that Campy Trains Act brought in an Olympic, ex-Olympic wrestler, because it was noticeable that the kind of takedown defence and so forth had improved like across the camp. But so he's fought Devin Clark, where he got the round 2 knockout. Jared Cannonier that went to a decision. I did re-watch this fight. It was about a week ago now, and I mean Jared definitely had his best round in round 3. He still got taken down though towards the end of round 3, but I think his cardio looked okay there. Jimmy Manuwa fight I re-watched as well. I think his cardio was okay there. Krylov round 2 finish. Santos, he looked okay cardio wise until he got knocked out. Luke, he looked okay. Yeah, I think his cardio does seem to have improved. However, he gassed against like Patrick Cummins and Corey because they were wrestle heavy fights where he was having to defend takedowns and stuck on his back, trying to get back to his feet, etc. He's not really faced anyone. He's not had that type of opponent since the Pat Cummins fight. And has his takedown defence improved since that Cummins fight? Again, it's hard to say. He sprawled well on a couple of Devin Clark shots, but I don't know, that means a lot. And then he's just fought strikers. He fought Jacare, but that Jacare wasn't shooting there. He was just trying to put Jan on the fence and trying to get him down from there, but he had no luck. So the questions for me, some of the biggest ones haven't been answered. How is he going to deal cardio-wise with a wrestler? Last time we saw him face one was Pat Cummins and he gassed. So haven't seen it since. Haven't seen someone grinding on him, taking him down, him having to work back to his feet. This is at altitude and it's 5 rounds. So that question's not been answered. It's not been answered, so I have to assume he's still going to slow down in a wrestle heavy fight because that's what the tape tells me. If it's on the feet for 5 rounds, potentially he'll be okay, based on what we've seen in his most recent fights since the Cummins fight. But takedown defence has just not been tested again since the Cummins fight, really. I mean, you had Luke Rockhold was trying to take him down in the clinch, but I mean, Luke's very dangerous on top, but he's not a takedown artist. Devin Clark's, mediocre wrestling, and he's small for light heavyweight. Doesn't really mean a lot. Stuff in him. Jan's a very big light heavyweight. So for me, those 2 questions haven't been answered since the Cummins fight. So, even if I err on the side of Jericho's improved a little bit in both areas, it's still a big ask to, when you look at their first fight, to now go and defend Corey's takedowns and work back to his feet when taken down and have the cardio to hold up for 5 rounds. How does this fight look on the feet? Jan is dangerous on the feet. He can crack. We saw him drop Jared Cannonier. He hurt Jimmy Manuwa in their rematch. he knocked out Luke Rockhold, but kind of everyone does. So he does have some power in his hands, that's for sure. But besides Luke Rockhold, who has he actually put away with strikes? You know, no one. Latifi was a body kick. So even though he has put down Jimmy and he did put Jared down, you know, he's not been finishing them. Now the knock on Corey has always been his chin. Now I bet Corey in his last fight, and I explained this at the time on the Joe Rogan podcast, Corey said that he was basically in a constant state of cutting weight, or he used to be. He used to always keep his weight at about 210. So that meant he had to constantly be cutting pretty much. He said that he felt that affected his chin. He went away. Now when he's in camp he weighs 230. He just holds his weight at about 230, so he's not having to cut anything. He just cut week of the fight. And since he's been doing that, he's fought Glover and Latifi, and both of them landed some solid shots on him, and shots didn't faze him at all. So while I'm not saying that he's now got a granite chin, I definitely feel that he has benefited from not holding his weight down at 210 rather, and I think you can clearly see that in the Latifi and Glover fights. Johnny Walker didn't land anything, so we didn't get to see it tested there, but I mean he came out and just blitzed Walker. So for me, I just think kind of things favour Corey here. I think for Yan to win this fight, he has to knock out Corey Anderson. And you take the body kick KO away in the UFC, he's got one KO win against Luke Rockhold, he was 100% chinny. Corey Anderson's got very good cardio. His cardio is better than Yan's. This is a 5-round fight and it's at altitude. He's got the wrestling. We saw him utilise the wrestling in the first fight. Yan couldn't get back to his feet. Has Yan improved? Yeah, I think he has. But has Corey improved? I think Corey's improved as well. Corey's a very cerebral fighter. Trains with a good camp. And I know he wants that shot at John Jones. He's going to be hungry for it. And I definitely think stylistically he's a more interesting fight than someone like Yan. So I think I have to lean towards Corey Anderson here, probably to win a decision. Yan, has Yan ever been finished except for Thiago Santos? Obviously run into that. I think it was a right hand. Don't think he has. Well, not in the UFC anyway, but wait. So yeah, I'm going to go with Corey here. I just think it's a good fight stylistically for him, even though Yan has improved in certain areas. But as I said, there's a lot of question marks out there with regards to how much Yan has improved. Corey's currently sitting at -190, which is kind of tempting. He was up at like -235 when I done tape on this fight, and you know I'm not betting -235 at light heavyweight in a fight that's probably gonna go 5 rounds. Corey isn't a finisher despite what happened in the last fight, but anything under -200 is kind of tempting, so I'll have to have a think about that. Corey decision is +150. Yeah, not great. I would have liked that to be +200 or so. But yeah, I'm going to go with Corey here, probably to win a decision. So that wraps up this card, guys. I like it from a betting perspective. There's a fair few bets out with members for this card. If you do want to jump on that action, £195 for the year. Message me on Twitter at Pro MMA Betting, or you can message through the website prommmabetting.com. As I've already said, £100 per unit members won £14,500 last year. There will be live betting for this event as well, so hopefully we can make some additional units on top of what we've got with our pre-bets, and hopefully we have a nice profitable night. I'll be back next week to talk about UFC New Zealand, Felder versus Hooker, which I'm currently taping at the moment, and it's a tough card for betting. Haven't finished it yet, but I'm not in love with the card for betting, that one. But I do like this week's one, and I think this is a really good card as well. I like the matchmaking, really good fights throughout the card. So good luck with your bets, guys, and I'll be back next week.